Hello, everyone, and welcome to Redesign Your Life Today. I'm Daniel Kobryner, your host. I'm a mental fitness coach. And this podcast, it's all about transformation. It's about sharing stories about deep transformations. The idea is to show that everything is possible in life at any age. And it's why today I'm delighted to have a very special guest. So it's Neil Tunnah. I hope do I pronounce your name? Is it
It's Tunnah.
Tunnah?
It's yeah. I've been getting called tuna since I was a little boy, but
It's it's
it's Tunnah. So
Neil Tunnah. Okay, thank
yeah,
you, Neil.
yeah,
And
no, that's
and
fine.
Neil has an amazing story. I mean, Neil is heading this company called Performance Chain, and he's helping high achievers, entrepreneurs, sports people to get the best out of themselves. He's very passionate about what he's doing. And without further ado, Neil, first of all, thank you so much for being on this podcast today. It's a pleasure to have you. And I'd just like to tell all our listeners a little more about yourself, about your story, and about what what made you do what you do now.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Daniel, and listen, thanks for having me on the podcast as well. It's great to be here. We had a little conversation prior to recording. There's lots of alignment and synergy between, certainly philosophically, but it sounds practically as well. And I've got well, it's actually interesting, Daniel, because my background and my story is my story. And you never think your own story is that interesting until you start to have some conversations around the place and share a little bit, and people come back and say, that's pretty interesting. How did you get there? And that's pretty much the story of my life. So I left school in the Scottish Borders, and yeah, I went into construction.
Mhm.
Didn't enjoy it. Absolutely hated it. But I got so many lessons from construction. But when I look back, what preceded that was growing up in a community that was very, very, I got to call them tight. So all the families knew each other, all the communities, all the people, the kids would obviously play together outside, a little bit different than these days. Stuck behind iPads, we were out climbing trees and playing rugby together. And when I look back on the lessons through that part of my life that I then carried into my working life, and moved into construction. Then I moved to Sydney in 2010. I was still involved in construction, but I was born with a rugby ball in my hand in the Scottish Borders. And when I got to Sydney, I was involved in rugby, and it put me straight into a community that, opportunity came from that community, not only professionally at that point in time, but an opportunity to coach people as well. And when I look back on my journey, Daniel, I was 31 years old, and I was quite lost, if I'm honest. I wasn't really sure who I was at that moment in time.
Mhm.
But immersing myself in coaching rugby taught me fundamentally that right at the core of who I am is helping other people and helping other people work out how to improve and grow and get the best out of themselves. And look, at that point in time, construction and rugby were the conduits. Through that period of time, I ended up really, really fortunate to get the opportunity to move into rugby full time as a coach. So became a career coach, spent from about 2014 through to even up until last year. I was still involved in sport full time. And it's certainly, the older I get, the more I recognize it wasn't necessarily about, and this sounds a bit crazy, it wasn't necessarily about the game. And what I mean by that is the technical and tactical. While I love that part, the the real passion comes for how do you set an organization up to create environments where groups of people can come together and do really well together. And we call that teamwork, don't we? So that's what I've got a real passion for now, is helping leaders build teams that are, listen, they're built on the foundation of deep, deep trust. And I actually had this conversation with a mentor of mine today. We were talking about great teams when pressure comes on, come together, and teams where are maybe a little bit lower in trust. When the real pressure comes on, they can separate. So I've got a real passion for bringing people together to build high trust teams that when pressure comes, which it always does, you see those teams come together to solve the problems.
Well, this is absolutely beautiful. And as you said, we had this little conversation just before that, and I resonate so much with what you are saying, Neil, because the first thing I heard is with rugby, you said, I really wanted people to get the best out of themselves. You see, and this is about this. This is coaching. It's not.
Yeah.
It's about empowering people, making sure that they know that everything is possible. And afterwards, you talk about teams, about leadership, and one word which stood out is trust. And
Yeah.
trust, the interesting thing, you cannot command trust. You can only gain trust through consistent actions. And it's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And when
Yeah.
you are consistent, this is where people look at you, look at what you are doing, and they will follow you as a role model. So
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah,
to be
absolutely.
impeccable as a leader in
Yeah.
order to command
Well,
trust.
couldn't agree more. And I truly believe, Daniel, that every interaction we have as human beings, we are always scanning. And what I mean by scanning is we are looking for reasons to trust, or we are looking for reasons to question trust. And that can be conscious and subconscious. But I think in every interaction, we're looking for alignment first and foremost. And then when we find some alignment, it's back to your piece about actions. We're looking then, do words and actions align? And I think we're always doing that as human beings. We're all looking for those moments where, I think we want to generally as humans, we're of good intention. We want to trust people, but we're always scanning. Therefore, we're always either building or potentially eroding trust.
Absolutely. And yeah, because we are discussing this as well. When we are born as children,
Yeah.
there's no limitation. We play, everything's possible. I'm going to become an astronaut. I'm going to go to the moon. I'm going to be the dancer. And then what happens is with education, we start being taught things by our parents, by our environment, by school, by church, by friends. And very often it's about, oh, do this, don't do that. And even this trust issue, if, for instance, we are surrounded by people who are not trusting others, this is when it becomes difficult because for us, it becomes the norm. It's like, oh, watch out. What's behind it? So,
Yeah. I think your comment around being taught, I think it's absolutely true, Daniel. But where my mind went to when you said that was, yes, we are taught and we are learning, but we are being shaped by. So when you touch on that, I think back to my upbringing. I go all the way back to when I was a kid and the way I was brought up, and I look particularly through that period through my schooling. And if you went back through my school reports between the ages of 10 and 17 when I left school, I'm pretty sure they would all say Neil has lots and lots of potential, but he just doesn't really apply himself. He doesn't focus hard enough. If he only tried harder, I don't think there's any of those. I don't think there'd be any of those reports would explicitly, specifically tell me or my parents what I was great at. So I think the whole system, in a sense, I mean, this is quite deep, but I think the whole system sets us up to accept rather than challenge. And I think if we can look at, I've got two young daughters. I'm exceptionally proud of them, their approach to life. They're really comfortable challenging themselves. They're really comfortable expressing what their goals are. And they're 12 and 9 right now. And my 12-year-old's going, right, I'm going to have a career in Broadway, Dad. And I'm like, yes, you are. And you're going to do it because you're great at this, this, and this. And the foundations of that are hard work, application, recognizing when to work even harder, recognizing when you're burning out and you need to press pause and step back so that you can be at your best in those moments. But look, the whole thing is about enabling greatness, and I don't think necessarily we're setting people up for success if we always constrain.
well,
So
And you know what? Again, this fully resonates with me. This is the way the whole system works. It's even
Yeah.
these grades at school, it's we are being shaped to become
Hmm.
what society expects us to be.
Yeah.
Imagine we are judged by grades, by marks. This is what
Hmm.
defines us. I mean, for the teachers, for and then for parents, but it's not who we
Yeah.
are. It's not who we
Yeah.
are. I mean, it's and when we can, you are saying as well that, for instance, we can have potential, but people have to see as well in us the potential, and they have to encourage us to go. Imagine we have certain skills as a kid,
Yeah.
and but our parents or others would say, no, no, this is not important. You should focus on this, this, and that. We do it
Yeah.
because we are good kids, and this is what people expect from us. But it's not who
Yeah.
we are. So what you do, and thank you so much for outlining this very wonderful relationship you've got with your two daughters, 9 and 12, you said, yeah? And
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, it's about, everything's possible. So when you do that, when you see we all, each of us have unique skills. We are born with this.
Yeah.
And my vision, which is perhaps a little spiritual, but this is the way I evolved as well. I'm going to share this, is
Yeah.
that I really believe each of us on this planet is there for a certain mission. We are
Mhm.
here to make this planet a better space. And we
Yeah.
can have different gifts. It could be in construction, it could be as a doctor, it could be at any job. But
Yeah.
we have to have this, we have to be given the chance to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And this is where uh, this helping people, I mean, with uncovering what their passions are, what they are good at, is so
Yeah.
important. And I guess that, and oh, I have a question for you just before we go on with this, but rugby has been a huge part of your life, right? And
Yeah.
we can feel your passion about this. If you were to quote like 4 or 5 like big human values in rugby,
Yeah.
what are they, Neil?
Yeah. I would say, I'm not going to sit here and reel off what you would find if you searched World Rugby's website. I think, while I think those values are important, I'll probably share more what I felt
Yeah, yeah, of
over
course.
my
What you feel, of course.
yeah over 46 years, and look, 41 of them I can remember being involved in the game, but even before that, I was involved and around the game. I think things like, connection and community become really, really important. And I think they're fundamental to what we are and who we are as human beings.
Mhm.
Human connection is such an important part um, of our energy system, I would say. And I think even we can have the discussion around introverts and extroverts. I don't know too many even introverts that when they have their close circle of community or friends, they still get energy from that, even though they're introvert. And so I think that's a really, really important part of, what the game gave and taught me. It taught me things like respect. It taught me how to work effectively with others. It taught me, and this is an interesting one. It taught me how to challenge others. And what I would say in my early days, not very skillfully. I would like to hope I'm much more skillful at that now.
Mhm.
But I think that how do you bring people together and move them in the same direction from a community and a team and a values and you know, but I keep coming back to that word connection, Daniel, and it's such a fundamental part of who I am as a person. Um, the game absolutely taught me and gave me that initially, and
Mhm.
then I think family. The other pieces when kids come along, when you meet your wife, and then kids come along. I think that just adds, just such a layer to what you see and how you value in that space. Um, it adds a level of care that is pretty special.
It's really beautiful. I mean, I heard you say, connection. So yes, community, care, and teams as well. See, the idea
Yeah,
is that even if sometimes, the way we can be brought up can be as well, we've got to put ourselves forward. But when you are in a team,
yeah,
it's not about you as an individual, it's about the team. How can you
yeah,
support each other? How can you work together? If somebody is a little
yeah,
behind, how can you be there? And when you see a game, a rugby game, it's fantastic because the spirit, the people there, everybody has their role, everybody contributes. It's not about
yeah,
being selfish and trying to go for the try. Well, no, you go there, see who is the best, how can you do this? And when you do that,
yeah,
everybody is so happy. The celebration, it's the team which wins, it's not an individual.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And look what we've learned and what sport, what being in business and then sport and then layering in having my own family through that period. What that taught me was that there's so much crossover between the three areas actually, between sport, between business, and even what you learn from family and bring it back into your life. Because I had this conversation with a business in Adelaide last week. We don't, and again, if we put family in a box and we put work in a box, those boxes aren't separate boxes, Daniel. So what happens in family life almost always transfers into work and vice versa. So we need to break those barriers down and go, actually, who am I? And how do I show up there that is similar to how I show up there? And back to your consistency piece, I think when you get that consistency, you get real. And when you get real, you get believable. And then when that flows through into leadership, if it's real and it's believable, and it's coming from the right place as well, I think you can create environments and influence environments where people are motivated to be, again, we talk about 1% better every day. People become motivated to look for, well, how do I contribute greater here? How can I be a better team member? How can I be a better teammate? How can I contribute? How can I then be responsible for performance and own performance as part of a team?
Absolutely. You see, again, see, I shared with you that I was involved in management of companies,
Yeah,
international sales, before having this calling to help people getting the best out of themselves. It's why I became a coach. You use the word
yeah,
selflessness, which I'm going to use now.
yeah,
And it's, see, the other words which comes to mind is authenticity.
yeah,
What you said now, Neil, is we are just one person. When people tell me, oh, this person is so different at work or at family, there's something which I don't get here because we are
yeah,
one. We have, oh, sorry. Oh, we have our values. We have, and we are just one. So, I mean, with our friends, with the way we interact, if we understand what is driving our lives, and this
yeah,
is a question I'm asking often, as a coach,
yeah,
is like, what are your core values? Not what others would like you to have, but who are you
yeah,
inside?
yeah,
I mean, for me, it's about, for instance, I mean, kindness is very
yeah,
important, but it's about respect, it's trust, empathy, and deep understanding for people. You see, it's really
yeah,
fairness. I mean, I'm just giving you an example of,
yeah,
and when you know, and it's difficult because sometimes you have a list of 50 words and you've got to choose some of them, all right?
yeah,
But it's really,
yeah,
this is what stays with you, even if everything else has gone, which
yeah.
even if and when we live with this is where this comes from the deepest part of ourselves, and
I agree.
nobody can take it from us.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's an interesting conversation, the values conversation, and look, how do you get to that place where you understand yourself well enough and deep enough to be able to identify what those things are? And I think a great measure of that, if you ask people that are close to you, how do I show up when I'm really happy, but how do I show up when things aren't going so well? And where are the consistencies in that? Because I truly believe, Daniel, that look at the end of the day, values are about behaviors, and that's how they get displayed. So it's I'm more interested in how people act than what they tell me they are.
Absolutely.
So it's
Exactly.
back to that trust piece as well, isn't it? So look, for me, again, I touched on this before, Daniel. I was pretty confused up until I was 30 something, and I met my wife, and we had our first kid, and it kind of reshapes the way you think, and it makes you, or it certainly made me sit down and go, right, who do I want to be? So when my daughter's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and she's able to recognize who I am through my consistent behaviors, what's she going to see? So what I mean by that is, what do I want her to see? What kind of influence do I want to be in her life? And then to be able to deliver that in an authentic way, in a real way for her and for the family, and all that stuff has to then transfer across your entire life. Because if it's not real and it's not authentic, well, I tell you what, if it's not real and it's not authentic, it's going to suck the life out of you. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tiring. And it's because it's fake, you're probably trying to convince yourself as much as you're trying to convince other people. So then that consistency part becomes really, really important. So what are the things that I'm going to do across my life consistently that equals me being a good human being? And that's everything from values that then turn into behaviors, that turn into habits that just consistently show up, that help you and give you half a chance of being I guess, the best person you can be. But what I would say is that is utopia as well. And I would say it's not always easy to be consistent, because I think, the environments that we are in at moments in time influence us. You then got to have the belief in your character. You've got to have the discipline to continue to show up as the person you want to be. And I think it's a fundamental part of being a human being that not everyone has the fortune to understand how important it is to sit down and work through that process.
Yeah. Wow. So deep. Absolutely. And see, well, I really loved what you said now, because life is a journey, and it's a journey of growth. You said,
Yeah,
really, for me, it's as well as trying to be the best version of myself and working. Does it happen that I'm perfect? Of course not. First of all, perfection doesn't exist. We all
yeah,
slip, and sometimes it happens. But you see, when we
yeah,
do, the idea is not to beat ourselves up. Oh, I've made a mistake. It happens, but we make a mistake, we apologize.
yeah,
We are vulnerable. And we know that I mean, for me, every event in life happens for a reason. It's just
yeah,
like my belief now.
yeah,
And instead of thinking, what does it happen to me? Oh, I'm the poor victim. What about, why does it happen for me? What does it teach me? And when we really look at that, challenges as opportunities, for instance, we know that our biggest growth is just on the other side of our biggest fear.
yeah,
So, and when we strive always to do things, you see, there's one sentence which I really like, because I got it from a book which is called The Four Agreements. You might
yeah,
be familiar with this book, but which comes from the Toltec civilizations, and this were really about life, how you principles how to live your life. But one
yeah,
which really stood out was be impeccable with your word. So
yeah,
important, because the
yeah.
word, we are the only people, I mean, the only species on this planet to have the word.
Mhm.
So word can enthuse, can motivate, we can do great things, but
Yeah,
we can do very bad things as well. We just say something to a person, imagine a kid, which can stick for the rest of their lives. It's like the
yeah,
emotion. So when we do this, for me, it's about not lying. It's about not, you don't gossip. You really do things which are right. And when we do that, this comes
yeah,
back to us, actually. This is very
yeah,
interesting. So, because people don't realize that the way that they speak words to, let's say, the universe, it's coming back to them big time as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I look, I think like you talk about how does a good human behave? I think integrity is an exceptionally important part of that. Like it's back to your words. They hold so much weight. So when you use them, be considered. And again, what I do is I think about how does that show up? How can we help leaders? How can we help people grow in that space? I think intentionality is one of the first or founding parts. I think self-awareness is another exceptionally important skill to help people develop. And when you get to that self-awareness and you start to talk about intentionality, and we would talk about intention and impact. You know, if I say something with a great intention, let's stop and think about what the impact might be before I even say it. Because there may be a blind spot in that space. My intention may be outstanding, but I get it slightly wrong, and the impact doesn't align with the intention, and it can be an interesting place to be in terms of how it impacts and affects others.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Neil, you've worked with different companies, teams, sports people.
Yeah.
Can you share perhaps some examples of really great transformations you've seen, from people you took at a certain stage and what did they reach?
Yeah. I've been exceptionally fortunate, Daniel, to work with some athletes. I can think of a couple of athletes in the UK that came to us from a place where they couldn't believe they were with us. And they had been told by previous coaches that they should never be there and never will be there. And they found their way to us. And then it was about, you can see the raw talent straight away, but then it was about helping them discover what it takes to push through. That not only the physical side of becoming a great athlete, but the mental barriers that have been created over time for them by coaches who had put them down. There's one guy that's playing in the UK just now. He's playing for a team in London, actually. And he came to us from a team in Scotland. He was as green as the grass, and it was interesting because once he harnessed belief, I knew the work that had to be put in to even survive. When that belief kicked in, and it was built off of the back of the work that he was putting into himself as well as the environment supporting that. Like, to watch his growth in a short space of time was like, this kid's gone from not believing in himself to being this man who was absolutely dominating, and he's gone on to have a wonderful career, and he's still having a wonderful career. And to watch his growth off the back of building belief in himself was probably one of the most special cases. And it's quite often, when I look at athletes, there's probably more stories in that athlete space for me than there is in business. But I think that's because sport does move faster than business as well. But some of the people, I'll tell you a little story here. We did some work with a business in the US way back in 2022, and I was in New Orleans. I was in New Orleans on business, and one of the guys that had been through the program that we put in place, and the program was done in Atlanta. I've got into New Orleans, and he messaged me and said, "Oh, I see you in New Orleans. Can I drive and see you?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course you can." Little did I know he was driving 3 hours to see us. It was to see me. I was in the hotel alone, and he's going, "I just want to catch up with you." So I sat down in the hotel, and he said, "I wanted to drive here and tell you something, because I wanted to tell you how impactful the program had been for me." And he had a relationship with his son that had deteriorated. His son had been a Marine, and he'd been in places in the world and seen things that had sort of impacted him quite deeply. And this father couldn't work out how to connect with his son. And he drove 3 hours to tell me that the program that he'd gone through, in terms of, we did a whole lot of work on, getting to understand yourself, a little bit of value discovery, what's important to you. Then on the other side of that is getting to know and understand other people at a level where they are. So just getting to know them deeply or more deeply and try and understand them a little bit better. And he took those principles back in his family and did it with his son. And it transformed his relationship with his son in a place where they didn't even speak to each other, to they were now spending so much time together, getting to know each other again. And this guy's, you go back to coaching and what's coaching all about, the selflessness of it. He drove 3 hours to tell me the impact that the program had had on his relationship with his son, when we've been brought in by a business to do some work with him in a business sense, and we had absolutely ticked all the boxes from a business perspective. But then you look at the impact over and above that, and it was humbling, but it was also energizing as well, to know that this guy had taken some of the things, the basic things that we'd done with him, and put them in his life and transformed his relationship with his son, who he had no relationship with at that point in time. So it's cool, and it's the privilege, I guess, of being a coach, and then finding ways to support people in ways that they need supported, not how you think they should be supported.
Well, it's so powerful, and just like to comment one little things. Neil, I heard you saying, "Oh, I've been so blessed and privileged to work with these individuals." I admire your humility, because I would turn it around. They have been so privileged to work with you. You see, this is sometimes we don't realize, and I'm just saying it because I feel it.
Yeah,
It's like, see, this father, first you talk about this athlete who kind of bloomed. I don't know, I'm French, or sometimes I don't know if my words
yeah,
are correct, but
yeah,
he managed to really become the best version of myself, because you work with him on his mindset, his limiting beliefs, and then all of a sudden everything's possible, because physical possibilities, of course, they are there, but what makes a
yeah,
difference is the mental. Now you talk
yeah,
about this business person, and you're going and helping the business, and then what more rewarding than somebody telling you, wow, I managed to I managed to change completely the relationship with my son. I mean, this is like,
yeah,
wow. So thank you so much for sharing these stories. And whoever is listening or watching is today, you see that everything is possible, and working on mindset is so important, is because
yeah.
we all have these little voices in our heads, which we got from
Mhm.
childhood. We
Yeah,
think, and which we learn, it's behaviors we learn this. And some of us, I mean, like perfectionists or controllers, or avoiders or hyperachievers. But all this,
yeah,
it's not us. It's behaviors or habits we learned as kids to protect ourselves. It's for our
that's absolutely
survival
right.
instinct, it's strength,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
we were great as a start, but which we use and abuse afterwards. And I was sharing to you,
yeah,
this is why I became a mental fitness coach, is to help people getting this awareness, and you used this word
yeah,
before, about what is stopping them from being the best versions they can. And when people realize, because we all have blind spots, we don't know. I mean, I was a
yeah,
I procrastinated a lot. I shared how I used to be a perfectionist. And okay, I wasted a lot of time and energy. And I thought it was good before, but no, I understood that no, it was not. It's about taking action. It's about
yeah,
action. It's something there's this sentence which really I learned, which is that it's not clarity and confidence, they come from the actions you take. It's not, oh, I
yeah,
wait until I have all clarity and confidence to take action. So sometimes if you
yeah,
know 80%, if you've got, go there, try,
yeah,
you will learn by doing, and this is when the confidence is going to happen. All these things, you see, I didn't know.
yeah,
So now
yeah,
but he says, well, it's something very important for our listeners as well. It's not about beating ourselves up, because we are the worst judges for ourselves.
oh
It's
yeah,
realizing that sometimes we didn't know better. This is the way, and perhaps it's our people who are judging us. But when we realize that every lesson in life, when it teaches us something and when we can change it, this is where our biggest growth and potential is.
yeah. I agree. And we touched on this a little bit earlier. I think every environment we're in shapes who we are right now. If we allow it to, is probably what I would say here, right? And what I mean by that is there are periods in our life where we have no control over it because we are exposed to what we're exposed to as children. But as we get older, we can. I think we've got the ability to recognize, that self-awareness. We recognize who we are and who do I want to be. Therefore, when we're going through difficulty or we're going through challenge, rather than having this approach to this is difficult, I don't like this, I don't want this shouldn't be for me, I don't deserve this, all that kind of language. If we can flip that around to, well, this is what's meant for me right now, what am I going to use and learn from it? And I would say that there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way that I read back in 2018 that was pretty profound in this space in terms of shaping and changing my mindset to let go of some of those things that we're speaking about. The saboteurs, if you like, and then we touched earlier on imposter syndrome. There's a period there where I think if you're gonna meet those things head on, you recognize that you have them. You've got to understand who you are and who you want to be again. It comes back to that, having real clarity on, look, this is who I am. These are my strengths. I'm really good at these things. These are my blind spots, and I'm going to work on them as well. And I think you touched on something really important there from a mindset perspective. Taking action is such an important part of success, goals, achievement, moving forward, standing still, moving back. I think having the tenacity to, even in difficult times, just take a step forward and build confidence from that step. And then the second step, and then suddenly you've taken 6, 7, 8, 9 steps, one after the other, rather than going, geez, I'm a long way from where I need to be. You start taking steps and you build momentum towards where you want to be or where you need to be. But it takes, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because the saboteurs, I think, is a really, it's really topical right now from a mindset perspective, and people being able to recognize that that's what I've been taught, that's not who I am, therefore I can change it.
Absolutely. And so when the method I'm working with is based on positive intelligence, and this was a method we just developed a few years back. And you can take a test, you can make an assessment, like I've got it on my website, but where you've got like to fill in 50 questions, and from that you are going to see in each of these saboteurs where you are between 0 and 9. And it's very interesting because, and afterwards what we do is we have a debrief with people who took it. And sometimes some things we know we are. I mean, I knew I was a perfectionist, hyper vigilant. I knew I was, but I didn't know where it came from. See, sometimes I'm in fears. Perhaps I got some from my mom for different reasons. And you see, when you are born with this, it's with you. So, but the idea is when you recognize that, and when you know that you can change it, because we've got muscles on the right part of our brain, which are developed. It's about working on these muscles. You are touching on something about so important, taking all actions and taking these little steps. What I would add to this as well, it's habits. Look at what our habits in our lives. What are we doing? Some habits are serving us. What about the ones which are not serving us? And we cannot just say, I'm not going to do it any longer. Just like this, it wouldn't work but we can, how can we replace it by another habit? Or and when we start doing this, we just imagine when we drink our coffee in the morning, okay, perhaps I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes. Something which helped me a lot, for instance, is practicing gratitude. It's just gratitude is, what am I grateful for? I woke up in the morning and first thing is like, oh, I'm alive. It's nice. And you see, when we start celebrating our victories, and it shouldn't be big victories, but small ones. Oh, I had this great conversation with my wife, or I had this great food, or this nice person, or even a smile. Imagine we smile to somebody who is, imagine you cross somebody in the street and this person looks really sad, and you give them just a nice smile, and it can make the day, it can change things. So I think kindness is very important. You know, when we are
Yeah.
genuinely kind to people and because we want the best for them. And when we ground ourselves in the present moment, what I would call
Hmm.
mindfulness is be fully present. When we are with someone, let's make sure that we listen to the person, that, the active listening is a very
Yeah.
important skill. And I guess it's something you must speak a lot about as well. It's about it's not about what we think. It's particularly if we're in a conversation, we are not in agreement. Before just pushing our things, this is how
Yeah.
it should be. Stop. Put your ego on the side and
Yeah.
be willing to understand really genuinely what the other person means. Why do they say that? And when we do that really thoroughly, it's like, oh, wow, now I understand where you're coming from. And
Yeah.
then we start changing things. You see, as a coach, what I'm saying is one of our biggest, you say, abilities is to be fully present in the moment, in the present moment with people,
Yeah.
without giving people the opportunity to express themselves vulnerably, without fears of being judged, of being
Yeah.
criticized, or of being given and solicited advice. It took me some time because I speak a lot as well. I was in sales, but I learned as well that, at least in these moments, to really go with the flow, just to wait.
Yeah.
And when we do this at all levels in our lives, with our partners, with our children, I mean, this is where communications can reach another level and where we can really, truly, give the best of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great discussion. I mean, it comes back to, I think deep connection. So if you show genuine interest, you listen actively, you pause before responding
Mhm.
rather than reacting to what they're saying, then I think the interaction becomes much more meaningful both ways. Whereas we see it all the time that the world's driven now by it's driven by speed. So everyone wants to move fast.
Mhm.
Therefore, there's a whole load of stuff out there around the active listening and the impact of someone doesn't finish and I speak over the top of them and it come back to that intention or impact model. Sometimes it's excitement. You've said something that's provoked me to think something and it's brought a memory forward. Therefore, I want to share it. But the impact of that is you've just cut them off and you've actually made them, well, every time I speak, you talk over the top of me.
Mhm.
Therefore, it shuts the relationship down rather than opening it up. So it's very, very most basic, a fundamental human skill is the ability to listen effectively and then the ability to communicate clearly. And what I mean by that is understanding. So creating understanding, creating clarity, listening actively, asking someone really, really good questions that engage them in deep thought or considered response. They're all skills that I think they're great human skills, but they're exceptionally powerful as leadership skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I was just going to ask you because I mean obviously we had a wonderful conversation and some of these skills, I think some of them are encompassed in what people called uh, emotional intelligence, which is a
Yeah,
which is an expression I didn't know. I can tell you 5 years ago I hadn't heard about this, but
yeah,
you hear about this. It's about deeply caring for people and wanting the best for them without expecting anything. Because this is the thing.
yeah,
If people says, I do this, if you do that, this is very different. But when you do this
yeah.
genuinely, I mean, this is where you become unstoppable and the people around yourself become unstoppable.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The emotional intelligence. It's interesting. I mean, most people spend a bit of time on LinkedIn these days, and I think there's a lot of buzzwords out there around what perfect leadership looks like and sounds like and should be, and you got models for this and models for that. And when I look at emotional intelligence, we spent some time sort of breaking down that concept probably about 2 years ago now. And I actually changed the language. I tried to change the language that I use from emotional intelligence and EQ to relationship intelligence. And
Mm-hmm.
all that means is relationship. It can be individual, it can be small groups, or it can be even big teams. But there are the complexity of individual relationships, group relationships, organizational relationships, and they actually only function if you know, and we would talk about KYP, knowing your people.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of that is knowing yourself. So when you've got both sides of that coin, I know myself really, really well. And all I mean by that is in certain situations, I will respond in certain ways. And there will be triggers, there will be emotions, there will be thoughts and considerations that I have to consider about myself. And then I have to be equally attuned to what that is in the other person to have an effective relationship. So you got on relationship intelligence. It's like how well do I know the person? How well do I know myself? And then when it's in big groups, how do we make that function together? How do we make multiple relationships work effectively? It's again a crucial component, I think, to building and leading teams.
It's amazing. It's amazing, Neil. And I really want to thank you so much for this conversation, which was, it was not planned as such, but it was absolutely marvelous. And before we finish, are they like, I mean, first, how can people find you, Neil? So what's the best?
Yeah, great question. So I mean, people can check the website out. It's theperformancechain.com. You'll see myself and the team on there. On a personal level, I've got my own LinkedIn page. What I am, I try to be really, really intentional in that space as well. If someone sends me a message, I'll always respond.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how it's become a bit of a marketing zone as well. We get lots and lots of sales messages in the inbox these days, but I even try to respond to them and at least give responses. So someone wants to reach out, by all means, jump on a LinkedIn and look for Neil Tunnah, or Neil Tunnah, as my friends would say when I was growing up. I've still got a friend in Scotland that if I was to phone his house now, his mum would say, Tunnah's on the phone. But yeah, look for Neil Tunnah at LinkedIn and you'll find me there. And by all means, reach out and we can have a conversation.
Wow, this is wonderful. And perhaps last question, if there were like 3 tips you would like to give our listeners now, just for something we have covered or not covered about transformation, what would it be?
Well, I would come back to the self piece here and how you show up for other people. And I've got 3 principles that have been, that they've been carved out of lots of mistakes, lots of reflection, self-reflection. And again, there's all these kinds of models flying around there, but I talk about the 3 C's, and it starts with connection. So fundamentally, it's about how connected can I be with the people and the person or the people that I'm interacting with at that moment in time. So nurturing deep connections. Then I would talk about the creation of clarity, because I think clarity creates confidence, and I think as humans we like to overcomplicate things when we should maybe look for ways to create clarity and simplify, because that has a profound impact on others. And then the last one, Daniel, is being consistent. So it's back to knowing yourself well enough to show up as you and have the confidence and courage to show up as you all of the time. So that's connection, clarity, and consistency. I try and use those to sort of fuel my life, if you like, as principles.
Well, amazing. And use as well the word courage, which is very important because we need to take our lives in our hands as well. We can't leave it to ours. We have to take our power back. And when we do this, this is when we can live it to our terms. It's not about what other people say, what other people think, but basically it's really what is within us. So when we do this, and so thank you so much. And of course, to everybody watching, I encourage you to contact Neil because he's got so much to offer with his program. And so thank you, everyone who is still with us now. I hope you took some interesting nuggets from these conversations, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.